looking anywhere and everywhere we can.
John and Elizabeth Calvert had been in Harbortown, the community on Hilton Head, for a number of years. You're talking about a small community on the south end of Hilton Head, and John and Elizabeth knew a lot of people knew them.
You don't want it to be true, and you think that maybe they have gone off on a little romantic escapade, but that is not the case.
Tony Gibbous is the general manager for the Calvert's Mariners Club at Harbortown. He hasn't seen or spoken to John or Elizabeth Calvert since Monday night.
I've never known them to be out of contact. Liz was supposed to be at work in Savannah on Tuesday and didn't call in. And John and I had a meeting Tuesday morning, and I couldn't contact him.
The assistant harbor master called me and said that neither Liz nor John had shown up where they were supposed to show up on Tuesday morning. So I thought that was just peculiar.
John Tatum, a partner at Hunter McLean, worked with Elizabeth for the past few months, ever since she came on as a partner.
Liz was very reliable.
Co-workers say her professionalism and knowledge is not something that can be replaced, and her absence is definitely affecting the people who knew her best.
So immediately, when we realized they were missing, one of the dock hands went over to go check the boat.
They had a yacht in Harbortown, and they lived on that yacht.
And John and Liz were not there. I just couldn't get my brain around it. They just vanished. John and Liz were a bit of an odd couple in that she was an extrovert and he was an introvert. Their differences seemed to really work for them. They were very much in love and happy with each other.
John and Liz came to the island from Atlanta to manage Harbortown Yacht Basin, which they bought.
John and Liz didn't have children of their own, but this job, the Harbortown Marina, this was their baby. And they lived and breathed this job. People who work with them were like their family.
March 4th, 2008 is the date that the missing persons report was filed.
Disappearances were pretty uncommon for us as far as Hilton Head area.
It's a sight no one wanted to see at Harbortown. Beaufort County deputy investigators looking for clues aboard the Calvert's yacht, and detectives with dogs searching around the boat and dock.
I remember that very well. These red rocking chairs where everyone's just relaxing, reading their newspaper. And then you've got this boat where all these smaller boats from the sheriff's office and people peeking in. It was just really strange.
So we went to John and Liz's boat just to look and see where, was there a sign of a struggle? Was there a crime scene there? Was there something we were missing? But we found no signs of a struggle, no documentation that would indicate that they had gone on a trip, no letters left behind. Things just looked normal, like they left, and with every intention on coming back home.
We checked anything you could think of to try to establish that they were okay, whether they were in local jails, local hospitals, and nothing was panning out.
We executed search warrants on both John and Liz's phones to try and establish maybe a timeline of activity, but those take a couple of days.
In the meantime, investigators question the Calvert's friends and associates.
The day before their disappearance, most of their behaviors were normal. Liz went to work. None of her coworkers reported any indication of stressors or anything off. John was the same way. No indication that there was a rift in the marriage, no signs of anger or depression. Things just seemed normal.
As investigators piece together their timeline, they learn that a day earlier, Liz got together with her friend Ellie Titus.
Liz and I, that Monday, we sat down and had a lunch. I sell real estate in Savannah. We were talking about them buying a little bit of real estate. A lot of people from Hilton Head have places in Savannah. It's a long drive after dinner to go back to Hilton Head. And that was most of the discussion that Monday. And she did tell me that she was having a meeting that night with her accountant, Dennis Gerwing.
Dennis Gerwing handled finances for the Harbortown Yacht Basin.
His offices are housed in Sea Pines Center, which is within walking distance of the marina. We went to meet with Dennis Gerwing to find out what happened during that business meeting.
Dennis told the detectives they had a meeting about finances, about the Harbortown Yacht Basin.
It was essentially a typical business meeting.
Gerwing says the Calverts arrived around 6 p.m. and were gone by 6:30.
Dennis Gerwing told the sheriff's office that the meeting went quite well.
Then John and Elizabeth got into John Calvert's vehicle and presumably left that parking lot to go to dinner.
And then Dennis said that he went home to have dinner and a glass of wine and just had business as usual.
Next, investigators focused their efforts on finding the couple's car, a silver Mercedes.
We issued a local be on the lookout to our deputies and local police departments in the area. We found out John had a GPS installed in that vehicle. It was exciting at first to think, okay, he's got a GPS, and if it's on, we got something. But guess what? GPS was off. Didn't lead us anywhere to find this vehicle.
Meanwhile, investigators checked the local airports.
John and Liz Calvert had an airplane which they kept at the private airport on the island.
We checked our local private airport, and Liz's plane was, in fact, at the airport, you know, buttoned down, just like, you know, it was there, it hadn't left.
Then, investigators make a surprising discovery.
We found that a John Calvert had actually flown out of the Savannah airport on March 4th, the day they were reported missing.
The flight arrived on time at its destination, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
But if it's just John flying out, we know Elizabeth is missing as well. Where's Elizabeth? So, I mean, you're thinking, whoa, we got something here.
Are John and Elizabeth Calvert? It's a question investigators are hoping you can answer.
The couple's silver 2006 Mercedes E320 with the Georgia Tech license plate GT821B is also missing.
The search for the Calverts has shifted 900 miles west to Tulsa, Oklahoma, a state that the couple has no known connections to. Yet John flew there all by himself.
To have information that one is traveling without the other, well, it was a little concerning. What happened to Elizabeth was our immediate concern. Where is she if John Calvert is flying out?
We need to find him, pin him down. Maybe, you know, John killed his wife and he left.
Investigators dive deeper and discover something big.
We had the police locate him. It was not the John Calvert that was missing from Hilton Head Island. It was another John Calvert. That name is not unique.
While the Calverts' friends pray the couple turns up safely, the investigation is back to square one. The FBI and South Carolina law enforcement officials have now joined the search. Still, no one has seen John or Elizabeth Calvert since Monday night, and their voicemails have gone unanswered.
This was a very big case in our community. So it was on the evening news every single night and on the front page of the paper every day.
The friends and the colleagues of John and Liz Calvert, they weren't resistant to talk to us because they wanted their message to get out.
We've been missing them greatly, and it's been a very difficult time for all of us.
And many close to the Calverts say it still doesn't seem real.
Every day I look out the window and expect them
to walk up this path.
They were not the kind of people who were used to being on camera and who really wanted a spotlight on them. And they tried to remain composed, but when it came down to it, they were distraught. You know, these were their friends and very close work partners who they feared they may never see again.
There was a lot of focus on finding John's car because it was still missing, despite a lot of effort. And it was a big piece of the puzzle.
And then the pieces started coming together.
Investigators found the Calvert's missing Mercedes-Benz at a parking lot at Palmetto Dunes Resort area.
The car was covered in, tree debris, which was indicative that it had been sitting there for a period of time.
But we were kind of nervous that the trunk might contain something that we didn't want to see. We opened the trunk. There was nothing there. And you kind of breathed a sigh of relief at that point because somebody dumped the car here for a reason.
As investigators search the rest of the vehicle, another clue jumps out.
Their accountant had told us that John and Elizabeth got into that Mercedes and presumably left to go to dinner. But it was clear to us that there wasn't a passenger in that car. I mean, there was coffee cups and everything else over on the passenger side of the car.
Somebody wouldn't have sat on, a coffee cup or stacks of paper.
So it looked like just one person had driven it there. I saw a few stains on the outside of the car that were brown, darker colored, that could have been blood.
That spot was processed forensically for evidence.
While waiting for lab results, investigators questioned staff from the hotel where the car was recovered.
We conferred with the hotel to make sure they weren't registered guests, that they had not dined there through credit card receipts.
There was no record of them eating dinner at the Marriott or staying there.
And the hotel parking lot has no video, leaving investigators with no way to confirm when the Calvert's car got there.
The car was found 4 or 5 miles from where we last knew it to be.
How did the car get to the Marriott parking lot?
Whoever put it there could have something to do with their disappearance. At that point, foul play was suspected.
Meanwhile, investigators continue to search for John and Elizabeth Calvert, who have been missing since March 3rd.
There were divers all around the marina. They were going under John and Liz's boat. They were going under some of the other boats. They have cadaver dogs around it.
Any break in the weather could provide a much-needed break for divers looking to continue their investigation. But it's difficult to stay positive when even the weather is not cooperating.
It became very real that they were looking for their bodies. They weren't looking for our friends.
With foul play suspected, investigators expand their search.
We searched in the areas that we knew were underdeveloped or that would have been an area that you could essentially maybe dump or bury a body.
And we received a tip from the Hilton Head Plantation area along the beach that somebody smelled a foul odor and suspected it might be a dead body. We responded to that area, searched the entire area. We did not find any dead bodies. And that smell was there. But again, sometimes when you're on the coast, you do catch those odors, decomposing fish and things like that.
But then they hear from another local.
We had a tip from a resident that lives on the waterway that sometime after midnight, the night that they disappeared, he had heard gunfire.
When paired with the suspicious smell nearby, a sinister picture begins to unfold.
He was a military veteran, claimed to be very familiar with gunfire. Hilton Head is a very quiet place at night. And for something like that to be heard, you're like, oh, that may be an area that we need to check.
But we weren't able to find any casings or anything that substantiated. We just weren't able to get anywhere with that lead.
But investigators continue to search for answers to the mysterious sounds.
We did have reports of fireworks on the beach, and so it kind of watered down the tip a little bit.
I remember some of the investigators going through local dumpsters.
We wanted to ensure that their bodies weren't put in the dumpster and transferred out.
No one could imagine the search for John and Elizabeth Calvert would lead authorities here, to the small, quiet city of Jessup.
We were able to find where the local trash had gone to the landfill in Jessup, Georgia.
The landfill over in Georgia was quite a ways away, but investigators were looking to see if there was any clues for John and Elizabeth Calvert there.
I ran into two locals who are finding this news very hard to believe.
We don't have nothing really something like that usually happen up here.
It was horrifying to me.
We were able to grid search the landfill with the assistance of cadaver dogs.
Our canine handlers will look around and see if the dogs pick up on something.
We thought that the bodies of John and Elizabeth Calvert were on that property, which we searched thoroughly.
But we did not find anything that would indicate that they were there.
With every day that we move forward, it diminishes the possibilities of finding the Calverts alive.
The investigation hits another wall when forensics testing on the car yields disappointing results.
No blood, no DNA, no nothing. Chasing down a lead and having it, not pan out, you're back to square one. You kind of take it personally a little bit. You want to know what happened because there's a family that wants answers.
But just as the investigation seems to stall, police receive a tip.
Over on the north side of the county, Port Royal Police Department, one of their sergeants called and said, "Hey, I've just had an encounter with a young lady, and I think she's got some information that you guys need to hear."
This woman, she knew what happened to the Calverts.
It's business as usual at Harbortown, but the mystery surrounding John and Elizabeth Calvert's disappearance still puzzles many on Hilton Head Island.
The sheriff's office was getting endless tips about the disappearance of the Calverts coming in from all different places. They couldn't ignore anything. And they did get a tip from this woman that seemed different.
We sat down and interviewed her. She told a very believable story of a relationship that she has with a man outside of her marriage. She said this man basically told her that he's a hitman.
His name is Frank Hargreaves, and his lover claims he told her a dark secret.
Her boyfriend told her that he killed the Calverts in Hilton Head Island and dug a big hole with a bulldozer and buried them on his property. And she really believed him.
She provided us a statement verification polygraph test, and she passed. We started an undercover operation, basically that we would wire her.
It's Angela Vians. I'm with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. It is 7:15 p.m. You're meeting with an informant.
That's it.
All right, that's it.
We set up a meeting in a restaurant, trying to get him to basically boast the same story again to her.
Tell me.
What do you want to know?
How you did that? How you killed someone with so many people around?
And she's, tell me about it. And he starts in, and you're like, here we go.
Like you're doing the job and then somebody else helps.
One thing I have to do is go and shoot.
The guy and the gal talking, and this guy admitted to being a hitman.
It wasn't only one, there've been two of them.
It's easier with two people.
Hargreaves then describes exactly how he carried out the hit without being detected.
You park your car at the boat landing. You get on a boat. You circle around by Sea Pines. And you come up from here to those windows to the back of their house.
Yeah, but you don't get it. Which house? Because they said that CNN, they don't have a house. They have a boat. How?
The Calverts don't own a house in Hilton Head, and police found no evidence of homicide in their yacht.
What he's telling us didn't really mesh with what we already knew. Is this for real?
Investigators bring Frank Hargreaves in for questioning.
We confronted him with what we knew, what she had told us, what we had him saying, and said, hey, we're gonna charge you with murder. Let's talk about this.
He denies killing anyone and claims there's another reason he told his lover he was a hitman.
He said, we role play. It turns her on. She is very needy, a very emotional woman.
But it's not an alibi that makes police move along. Investigators dig into his lover's claim that he'd buried the Calverts on his property.
He let us go to his house, search his yard, everything. We did not find anything that would indicate that they were there. We found absolutely nothing. He wrote a statement, and he too passed a verification test. They had this seedy sexual relationship, and that's all that it turned out to be.
It seems Hargreaves' lover cannot separate fact from fiction, and police waste no more time with her.
Those are the kind of things that get frustrating because you think you're onto something, and then you're back to square one.
But when the Calverts' phone records from the day of the disappearance finally come in, they breathe new life into the investigation.
Based on the reports, we knew when John used his phone, he checked his voicemail at like 5:28 p.m. on the date, and I think that Elizabeth used her phone the last time like 5:27. That was the last time those phones were used.
And that was right before they met with their accountant, Dennis Gerwing.
Investigators now believe Dennis Gerwing is the last person to see the Calverts alive, and they hope he can tell them what really happened.
We tried to reestablish contact with Dennis, but he had retained legal counsel.
Over time, things changed for Dennis because he finally decided to get an attorney, and the attorney advised him to stop talking to the sheriff's office because he was being so cooperative.
We received no further cooperation from Dennis Gerwing at that point.
Investigators reach out to Gerwing's associates.
You talk to the people that you would anticipate would know Dennis best, and Dennis had a partner, an equal business partner.
Investigators question Gerwing's partner, Robert Ledbetter, to determine whether he had interacted with the Calverts the night of March 3rd. He claims he hadn't.
That night, the partner and his son were actually moving furniture.
He told us that they had borrowed a company van and they were moving furniture back and forth from a storage shed to a residence.
And this would have been the same time that Dennis Gerwing was meeting with the Calverts and the last time they were seen. We thought, okay, this is something to follow up on.
Robert tells police that he returned home around 8:30 p.m. and didn't leave again until the next morning. While police are corroborating his story, they receive a tip.
And then we get a call that this partner was stopped inside Sea Pines by security and may have gotten a ticket.
A traffic citation after midnight on the night of the disappearance. We're like, oh my gosh. We're thinking, they've commandeered a moving van. What are they really doing with the van?
Police take a closer look.
It wasn't the night they disappeared. It was the night before. It just happened to be after midnight.
18 hours before the Calverts disappeared.
The partner was legitimately moving furniture and had nothing to do with the meeting with the Calverts. That did not bring us any closer to finding John Elizabeth.
But Robert is able to point investigators to a new lead. The only other person he saw at the office when he left.
I interviewed the employee of Dennis Gerwing, and she offered that Dennis asked her on that Monday afternoon, the same day that the Calverts were last seen, to follow him back to his house. She said when they got to his house, he went in the house for a minute and came back out carrying nothing. And he got in this employee's car.
On March 3rd, the date of the disappearance, they stopped by a building supply store on Hilton Head, and he purchased 3 9x12 drop cloths.
He said he was going to do some painting, but nobody we interviewed indicated he was this manual labor kind of guy. And there was no painting going on anywhere in Dennis Gerwing's world.
You could use a drop cloth to dispose of a body, to wrap a body up within the drop cloth and dispose of that body without anyone on the exterior of that particular business knowing anything other than maybe it's a rug or, some trash they're throwing away.
He bought these 3 drop cloths an hour or so before he was meeting with the Calverts. And then Dennis and his employee drive back to Sea Pine Center. She offers to help him carry the drop cloths up to the office, and he says, "No, I got it. I'll take care of it." This employee said that Dennis, sometime after 5, sent her out of the office. He says, "We'll see you tomorrow."
Investigators subpoena Gerwing's cell phone records and review their notes from his initial interview.
During the original interview with him, he told us that after their meeting, on his way home, he stopped and got gas.
I went to this gas station, picked up the video, and Dennis Gerwing was on this video purchasing a lottery ticket.
Security camera footage puts Dennis Gerwing at the gas station at 7:40 p.m., an hour after he claims he left his office.
The timing of what he is telling us and the timing of what we were able to establish just didn't coincide with one another. So in the back of your mind, you're thinking,
Dennis also told investigators that after eating dinner at home, he drove to a CVS drugstore.
He said he cut his hand on a wine bottle at home.
We circled back on this cut on the hand. He said, "I went to this pharmacy and bought some Band-Aids at 10 or so at night."
We were quickly able to establish he did, in fact, go to CVS and purchase some Band-Aids. On the CVS video, you can clearly see that he's got an issue with his hand.
But when they peeled the layers back on that and investigated that, he was actually there around 7:20, 7:30.
3 hours earlier than he originally claimed, and less than an hour after his meeting with the Calverts.
It was immediate. It was right after whatever happened to the Calverts. He ends up at this pharmacy with this cut on his hand.
And he received that cut at his job at Sea Pine Center, not at his home.
And not only did he buy Band-Aids, but he went back in the store a second time and bought latex gloves.
Latex gloves are pretty common to those committing crimes to keep their latent fingerprints and their touch DNA off of items.
Now investigators want to know what really happened at Gerwing's office that night, and they hope CCTV captured something.
So we checked all the businesses around the Sea Pine Center.
We obtained video from a restaurant at Sea Pine Center that has Dennis Gerwing hanging around to about 1 o'clock in the morning.
While the footage doesn't shed any light on his meeting with the Calverts, or why their phones were suddenly turned off, it does show Dennis acting strangely.
He's pacing back and forth between the parking lot to the rear of the Sea Pine Center. He looks like something's on his mind.
After viewing the footage, police receive Gerwing's cell phone records, which reinforces their perception of his behavior.
Dennis Gerwing had turned off his cell phone for 12 hours the day that John and Elizabeth Calvert disappeared.
And that's basically to kill it. That way we can't track it on GPS. And it was obvious and evident that he had enough knowledge about the importance of turning off your cell phone because it's a GPS tracker.
During that 12-hour time, he could have taken their bodies somewhere, but no one really knew where.
All this adds to the growing list of Gerwing's suspicious activities that night.
You got the latex gloves, the drop cloths, the cut on his hand. That's where Dennis Gerwing becomes more of a suspicious person. So what's he not telling us about the meeting with the Calverts? At that point, we had developed enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant for Dennis Gerwing's home.
On March 8th, almost a week after the Calverts disappeared, investigators look for evidence linking Gerwing to their murders.
We did not find the 3 9x12 drop cloths. We have not found the latex glove that he purchased on the day the Calverts disappeared.
But the search yields something new.
We found a shovel with a good bit of dirt on it, like somebody had been digging in wet dirt.
If he was going to essentially dispose of a body, that would help. We also located an empty gun holster in one of the dressers in his bedroom with no weapon to match.
Finding an empty holster throughout an investigation and not finding the gun itself, it goes to the holster and we've got 2 people missing. Of course, it's a huge interest.
Then, investigators discover one crucial piece of evidence is missing.
Dennis had told us that he cut his hand on a wine bottle. There was no indication that a wine bottle had fallen and broken on the floor. No stains, no spatter, nothing. His trash hadn't been dumped, so if there was a broken wine bottle in the home, we would have seen it. So we do have Dennis with an injury that really is unaccounted for.
When you see these cuts right in the web, what it usually means is you slide in an automatic pistol, oftentimes makes a red mark right here. So that was an interesting cut.
The evidence against Gerwing is stacking up.
And at that point, we had intended on publicly naming Dennis as a person of interest in the disappearance of the Calverts. Sheriff Tanner had scheduled a press conference on the 11th.
The plan to release that information was strategic. It was to free up information from people that may know Dennis, that may have some information, that were apprehensive to come forward.
Didn't happen. We never got it out.
Just as investigators are about to announce Dennis Gerwing as their suspect, they are thwarted by bigger news.
A body had been found.
By the sheer number of people that turned out tonight, it's obvious the Calverts' disappearance has rocked this once quiet community. Some here knew the Calverts well, others did not, but they were all here for one common goal: to stand strong together and find strength in each other.
There was a vigil being held down at the harbor for John and Liz, and almost simultaneously we were working a crime scene.
And it was at that vigil that all of a sudden some of my colleagues started disappearing. You know, they started running off real quick. And I'm thinking, what's happening?
We learned that they'd found a body.
It's a body no one expected to find.
Dennis had asked his business associates if he could stay in one of the villas that they rented while his house was being cleaned up. It got to a point where nobody could reach Dennis. Nobody kind of knew where he was. His business associates took one of the access keys over to the condo that he was staying in.
When they made entry, they went upstairs. They saw that the bathroom door was locked. They looked around. They became concerned that something bad happened to Dennis. The attorneys contacted the sheriff's office.
Entry was forced into the bathroom of the master bedroom. Dennis was found deceased.
Beaufort County Sheriff P.J. Tanner says that Gerwing was found in the bathtub. The cause of death, several cuts on his neck, wrist, and thigh.
The weapon was at the crime scene. It was in the bathtub with Dennis Gerwing.
The weapon, a knife taken from inside the condo where Gerwing was staying.
There were a lot of questions being raised as to whether he committed suicide or whether someone had killed him.
Forensic pathologists at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston concluded that these were self-inflicted knife wounds, lacerations.
Investigators also found 2 prescription pill bottles, an empty bottle of wine, and 2 handwritten notes, one written on a bed sheet and the other left in the bathroom.
In the suicide notes, he admitted to embezzling money. Dennis had embezzled more than $2 million from his clients, including John and Elizabeth Calvert.
The Calvert's loss was around $200,000.
The evidence was piling up, but then Gerwing killed himself, leaving behind no answers, only 2 suicide notes. P.S. I have acted completely alone in all actions committed. I knew the risk of this happening and believe taking myself out of the game is the best way to move everyone as quickly as possible past all events. All anger should be directed towards me. Burn my body and dispose without service. It happened in SPC, which is Sea Pine Center.
I think one of the important messages that Dennis left in his suicide note was, it all happened, and he put it SPC, Sea Pine Center. It all happened there. I think he meant that was when the Calverts took their last breaths.
Of course, we were looking for Dennis Gerwing to indicate that he had something to do with the disappearance of John and Elizabeth Calvert.
The letters and the notes left behind did not tell us what happened to John and Liz, nor where they were.
But guess what? He never denied at any time that he had anything to do with the disappearance of John and Elizabeth Calvert.
Sheriff Tanner says what they have on Gerwing is circumstantial, but that everything is factual, and it starts the night the Calverts went to meet him to discuss financial irregularities Elizabeth Calvert found in his work, possibly giving Gerwing a motive for murder.
Money does some evil things to a lot of people. I mean, right now, you would have to look at the fact that mainly Liz was basically pulling the plug or identifying Dennis for what he was.
We learned from acquaintances and through some financial records that Dennis enjoyed the company of women that were paid for. We learned that he liked to gamble. We learned that he liked to live a little bit beyond his means. And that's where we believe and can pretty much validate that the missing money from John and Liz's accounts went, as well as from the other accounts from the club group management.
Even if the sheriff's department says all the evidence does point to suicide, the people who knew Gerwing well say they still have a hard time believing it. Like Peggy Wieters, she's known Gerwing for 20 years. She never thought he would do something like this.
I think it's bizarre, to say the least. I think he must have had a lot going on, you know, that people didn't know about for it to get that far.
He was kind of a respected member of the community. So talk about reasons for Dennis feeling in a corner and having to do something with the Calverts and acting on that and then taking his own life. I mean, things were crumbling around Dennis Gerwing.
I think he did it. When he met with the Calverts that night in his office, he made that choice and did the wrong thing. And then he couldn't live with it.
The shovel with the wet soil on it, Gerwing powering off his cell phone for 12 hours and all the other stuff. So my belief is that the bodies of John and Elizabeth Calvert are within about 6 hours of Beaufort County in a rural area known by Dennis Gerwing. And I think they'll be found one day.
The investigation, I think, was very thorough, and we dotted our I's and crossed our T's. And, you know, personally, what happened to them? You know, that is a question that I will take with me forever. It's part of the job.
I got out of reporting about 7 years ago, but this is definitely one of the stories that continues to haunt me because I think it really shook our whole community. And I just hope